So what are the necessary and sufficient conditions of knowledge? Right? Knowledge of the Sirah. So you want to read a book of Sirah. There are many out there. How do you narrow down which one is best for you? Right? How do you know which one you should read? It's not just a rhetorical question. You can answer. Yes, Jazakallah khairan, Imam. So you have to look at the qualifications of the author, right? Do you look at the author themselves? Do they have the necessary conditions to delve into the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam without making mishaps and mistakes? Right? There are many books on the Sirah written by individuals who, because of their unqualifications, they have not studied Aqidah, they have not studied fiqh, they do not know Arabic, and they use all these secondary sources, and they're very poor sources. Because of that, they come to conclusions that are contradictory to our aqidah, right? Contradictory to our aqidah. So you have to look at what are the sources of an individual, right? So these are certain conditions of sirah, knowledge. Anybody who wants to delve into study of any Islamic science cannot be without Arabic and its antecedents. So that means studying sarf, Arabic morphology, Arabic grammar and syntax, Arabic rhetoric, Arabic literature, right? And also these other sciences, these are just a few: Aqidah, Fiqh and Usul al-Fiqh, Hadith and Usul al-Hadith, Ulum al-Quran, Tafsir. A person needs to know about these things. I listed one thing there, that's Ilm al-Mawhiba. That's something that Suyuti rahimahullah mentions in terms of the condition of a mufassir. That's referring to, when a person is accepted, they have this qabuliyah from Allah Ta'ala, right? Stems from the hadith of man amila bima alima allamahu Allahu ma lam ya'lam. That when a person acts on what they already know, right? Don't worry about what you don't know. Man amila bima alima. A person acts on what they know. Allamahu Allahu ma lam ya'lam. Then Allah will teach them what they do not know. Right? So we through wahi, we know that a person who recites Surah Al-Waqi'ah, lam yusibhu faqa abadan. Right? He is never afflicted with poverty. How do you know that? You don't know that through empirical data. You can't arrive to that conclusion through scientific means. You know that through wahi. Right? You know that through wahi. So when Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu was on his deathbed, and Uthman radiallahu anhu came to him, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud only had daughters, right? And Uthman radiallahu anhu came to him, and he asked him, should I allocate some funds for your daughters after you pass away? Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said, no, you do not need to do that. I have taught them Surah Al-Waqi'ah. Right? What knowledge he was given, he implemented. And thus Allah gave him more. Right? Abdullah Mas'ud, anybody who studies fiqh is indebted greatly to Abdullah Mas'ud, the founder of the school of fiqh and hadith and tafsir in Iraq. Nevertheless, that's a separate discussion in and of itself. But when we want to look at which books of seerah to read, right, you have to understand what is the necessary condition for this individual. Who am I taking my knowledge from? And thus this becomes imperative. So the function of seerah is not simply to see the Prophet ﷺ's life in chronological order and just go through the record of events. This happened before the Prophet ﷺ was born. This happened at his birth. This happened when he made hijrah. This happened when he came back at Fathu Makkah. It's not just the function is much more than that. It's not just a record of events. What you see when you have these conditions of knowledge, when you are taking it from these proper sources, what you see is haqiqa muqaddasa. You see the reality as it is. Right? The Prophet ﷺ has taught us this dua, Allahumma arina al-haqqa haqqan warzuqna ittiba'a. Oh Allah, allow us to see haqq as haqq. وَأَرِنَا الْبَاطِلَ بَاطِلًا وَارْزُقْنَا اجْتِنَابَهُ. And allow us to see falsehood as falsehood so that we can stay away from it. So this idea of the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ is not just to go through these events in chronological order. It's to put a perspective on your life that allows you to see life as it truly is. Right? You see life for it truly is. Because then when the Prophet ﷺ tells you something, you start to adhere to it. The Prophet ﷺ has said, for example, من كذب إذا كذب العبد تباعد عنه الملك ميلا من نتم ما جاء به. That we all know that there are certain moral things that we can arrive through our intellect that they are wrong, right? Such as lying. Lying is wrong. And the Prophet ﷺ has stated that when a slave lies, when a slave of Allah, when a person lies, إذا كذب العبد تباعد عنه الملك ميلا, then the angels disperse from that person. They go far away from that person, right? And who takes that person's place then, right? When the angels leave, who comes? The shayateen, right? هل أنبئكم على من تنزل الشياطين تنزل على كل أفاك أثيم. That should I tell you who the shaitan befriend, who they descend upon? They descend upon those who commit wrong and lie. They are, so when the angels leave that person because of the stench that is coming from him, min natni ma ja'a bihi. How do you understand? And when you understand the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, that's not just going to be some moral story. It's not just going to be some metaphorical thing. It's real, right? You believe in the angels because they are real. You believe in the Day of Judgment because it is real. So the function of the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ is not limited to just these recording of events. So we will be following certain precepts and principles to arrive to that conclusion, right? So that our result is something that is in line with the worldview of the Prophet ﷺ, as we talked about looking at the Prophet ﷺ through the lens of Rasulullah. I just listed here a few examples that if you do not have these conditions properly in place, right? These conditions and many others, these are just a few of the ummahat, few of the primary ones. But these conditions and others, then you will fall under many different mistakes. And that's why when you read the books of the Orientalists in regards to seerah literature, you'll find many laughable conclusions. And I say that with a straight face. It's laughable conclusions. Like, for example, the Ashab al-Fil. They will just simply deny the idea of anything being supernatural, right? So something that is clear cut in the Quran. Our epistemology is that when Allah Ta'ala tells us about something, we know that He is qadir, He is capable. He is capable to do anything. His power is limitless. So we know about the story of Abraha, who came with the elephants, and the story of Ashab al-Fil. أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ فَعَلَ رَبُّكَ بِأَصْحَابِ الْفِيلِ إِلَى آخِرِ السُّورَةِ. Now that surah, you will see those who deny supernatural things, those who deny miracles, they interpret Ashab al-Fil as, that was just, chicken pox that came about, and that is what took hold of these elephants and these people, and that's how they died. Right? They'll reject miracles, the Isra wal Mi'raj. Right? Subhanalladhi asra bi'abdihi ila akhir surah. So those ayahs that speak about the Prophet ﷺ traveling at night from Mecca to Bayt al-Maqdis, and then his eventual elevation into the heavens. So they'll deny that miracle in totality, deny any miracle. They'll reject the unseen. The ayat in the Quran that speak about Allah Ta'ala sending angels at the Battle of Badr. They'll just say that was just moral support, right? That wasn't actual angels. So the result of not having these proper sources is that you end up with these false interpretations. interpretations that go against one's aqidah, that to the extent can take a person outside of the fold of Islam. Right? If a person takes these home, they will take these beliefs will take a person outside of the fold of Islam. It is tantamount to kufr, and I say that without any embellishment. That is true. So that is the result of these false interpretations. So we come back to the question of how to study the seerah. Right? We come to this question, and I'll reiterate what I've stated before. That the Prophet ﷺ, nubuwwah is not something that's kasbi. Prophethood is not something that you can obtain. Right? No matter how righteous you may be, no matter how great of a lineage you may have, you can never become a prophet. Prophethood is something wahabi. It is a gift from Allah Ta'ala. It's a burden from Allah Ta'ala upon whom Allah chooses. That is why the Prophet ﷺ is called Mustafa, the chosen one. Right? It's not something that the Prophet ﷺ wanted. Right? And we'll talk about this when we talk about the initial wahi of Surah Al-Alaq and how the Prophet ﷺ reacted. That is a sign of his nubuwwah. So, in these ayahs in Surah Al-Haqqah, they speak about the Prophet, if the Prophet ﷺ changed. Right? If he changed what was brought to him, وَلَوْ تَقَوَّلَ عَلَيْنَا بَعْدَ الْأَقَاوِيلِ لَأَخَذْنَاهُ مِنْهُ بِالْيَمِينِ ثُمَّ لَقَطَعْنَا مِنْهُ الْوَتِينَ فَمَا مِنْكُمْ مِنْ أَحَدٍ عَنْهُ هَاجِزِينَ. That if the Prophet ﷺ, and this is an if, right? This is not speaking about reality, that obviously we know that the Prophet ﷺ would never do such a thing. He would never change what was brought to him. But imagine, look at the severity of the situation. That if he had said something about us that is not true, then we would have taken him to task. Right? And none of you would be able to protect him from us. We would have taken him to task. Now this is Allah Ta'ala speaking. Right? We need to, when we speak about the Prophet ﷺ, we cannot speak as if we are Allah. Right? We do not speak about the Anbiya alayhimus salam, about the Sahaba, about anybody as if we are on the highest pedestal of all. Right? We do not speak about others. We have, part of our civilizational code is adab, right? Having etiquette. In one hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he stated, مَا يَنْبَغِي لِأَحَدٍ أَنْ يَقُولْ أَنَا خَيْرٌ مِّن يُونُسِ بْنِ مَتَّةَ alayhi salam. The story of Yunus alayhi salam is mentioned in the Quran, and he is rebuked by Allah Ta'ala for deciding something before it was to occur. And for that reason, some assume that Yunus alayhi salam's stature and status is lesser than the other Anbiya alayhi salam. And the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam is telling them, it is not befitting for any one of you to say that I am better than Yunus. Right? It is not befitting for any one of you to say that I am better than Yunus alayhi salam. The adab, right? Just because he did make a mistake, right? That does not mean that you are Allah, that you can reprimand him. Allah has reprimanded him, and we take lessons and morals and principles from those stories. Right? In the story of our father Adam alayhi salam, فَعَصَى آدَمُ رَبَّهُ فَغَوَى. Right? Can any one of you say that, your father disobeyed Allah, that he was misguided? Right? No. Allah Ta'ala can say that. Right? Allah Ta'ala can say these things. You cannot say them. So there is an adab when you speak about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, about Adam alayhi salam, about Yunus alayhi salam, that is reserved from the position of where Allah Ta'ala is as our God, as our worship, as the one who we worship, that He can say certain things that we cannot. Right? Allah Ta'ala says about to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, abasa wa tawalla. Right? In the story of Abdullah ibn Maktoum radiyallahu anhu, the blind Sahabi who came to visit the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Again, that reprimand can come from Allah Ta'ala. It cannot come from you and I. So there is something to be stated about the adab of these things that, is part of our civilizational code that we should take it to heart. But once again, how did the Prophet ﷺ present himself to this world? Right? He didn't present himself. He was given the option, as we will see in the seerah. He was given the option that if you want to be the king of Mecca, we will make you the king. Right? If you want to be the wealthiest person in Mecca, we will make you the wealthiest person in Mecca. At that point, he could have ended all of the economic struggles that were occurring there, right? But no, he did not. He did not present himself as one who is an economic leader. He did not present himself as a commander of the army, even though he was those things. Do not forget what he presented himself as. He presented himself as the Prophet of Allah, as Rasulullah, because what he brought and what he has brought is wahy, revelation, right? And that is what we take from the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. And when we study the Prophet ﷺ seerah, we don't just look at one angle. Context is very important. So when we look at the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, we will have to look at it ala wajh al-basira, right? In a way that allows us to see the Prophet ﷺ min jihat mukhtalifa, from different angles, right? So we see his upbringing, right? Him in the care of Halima radiallahu anha, how that affected him and his relationship with other people later on, his morals, his personal life, the environment, the friends and enemies of the Prophet ﷺ, how he dealt with people in times of peace, also how he dealt with them in times of war. Right? You cannot just say that the Prophet ﷺ was a peaceful individual, right? And not discuss how he dealt with people at times of war. That is part of the nubuwwah, right? You are doing a disservice to yourself when you turn a blind eye to those aspects of the Prophet ﷺ. So we will cover the seerah ala wajh al-basira, inshallah, that from the angle so that we understand the Prophet ﷺ from different angles. I know this session was a little bit dry, so it's a little bit difficult to. I know the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ is very uplifting. It's very, it's heart wrenching, right? It gets to you. So when we talk about this session, I just wanted to lay the foundations. Make sure our roots are strong. But in our future sessions, inshallah, we'll be talking about, obviously, one day of the Prophet ﷺ cannot be covered for the rest of our life. But what we will try to do is present those seminal moments of the Prophet ﷺ, the highlights, you can say, from different years of his life. And then through presenting those stories, to give the context of those stories. Who did the Prophet ﷺ deal with at those times? Who were his allies? Who were his enemies? Who were his relatives that gave him support, and those who left him out to dry? And then from that, we will extract lessons and principles so that we can implement that aspect into our life, and thus maybe even have what we listed here as ilm al-mawhiba, right? That knowledge that is gifted from Allah to us, that if we act upon what we do know, right? Each month we'll talk about certain things, and you can take home those points and act upon them. Or you can just brush them under the rug and not do anything with them. But if you act upon them, then that is a prophetic promise to you, right? I'm not promising you that. The Prophet ﷺ is promising you that if you act upon what you do know, Allah will give you that which you don't know. So, looking forward to the next session, what we will be talking about is the Jahiliyyah era. The Jahiliyyah is not in relation to their actual intellect, right? It's in relation to the religious, social, and moral conditions of that time. So we will talk about the what the Prophet ﷺ grew up around, right? What was he dealing with? What were his father, his grandfather dealing with? and why Allah Ta'ala chose the Arabian Peninsula for the mission of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. We would have believed in the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had he been from China, had he been from Russia. We would have believed in him. But there is a reason why the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was chosen to come from the Arabian Peninsula. So we'll talk about that and some details regarding Mecca before the advent of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. With that, inshallah, I'll open the floor for questions. I don't know how the sisters are going to question, but if there's someone there that is passing out note cards, that may be a way. Otherwise, get creative. Yes. Yeah. So the question is, I have listed out some of these conditions. This is not an exhaustive list. This is not an exhaustive list by any means, that speak about conditions of seerah knowledge. This is more so geared towards the author, not for someone who is willing to understand the seerah. The seerah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, when it is read in the way that it should be read, is universal. It is applicable to males and females. It is applicable to old and young. It's applicable to the poor and the rich. So, when a person is reading the seerah, this is not conditions to understand the seerah. This is conditions of who you take your knowledge, seerah knowledge from. Right? So that is what I mean by these things. Because otherwise, if you take it from just someone who is eloquent, and there are many individuals who are eloquent and can write in beautiful ways, but they have, as Maul Zakaria in his Abiti has mentioned, it's like milk with drops of urine in it, right? That's what he compared some of these things to. That you have really beautiful points, but then you have those really ugly points, whether it be about speaking about the character of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, whether it be demeaning the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or just disregarding the miracles in totality, which are part of our aqeedah that define us as Muslims, right? So, yes, I'm not saying that the entirety of those books that are written by unqualified individuals are useless, but we read the seerah not just for entertainment. We read the seerah because we know that it's a form of najat. We read the seerah because we know that it's a form of salvation for us. Right? It's not just to gain knowledge. It's not just to be aware. This is for us. It is Jannah and Jahannam. For us, it is life and death. It is us. For us, it is Shaitan or the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is why these conditions are so important from the author's perspective. Yes. The question is in regards to different books. Inshallah, there are different books that one can refer to. It depends on a number of different factors. Whether a person is, I have brought a few with me here. One is Sheikh Ramadan Bhuti's Fiqh Sirah, which has also been translated into English. There is Maulana Abu Hassan Ali Nadwi's Rasul al-Rahmah, the Prophet of Mercy, which has also been translated into English. Maulana Idris Kandhlawi's book Sirat al-Mustafa, which has also been translated into English. Many of these are translations. Sadly to say, many of the original English works I cannot recommend because of the problems within them. Those are a few that come to mind, but it depends on what you're exactly looking for from it and the depth that you want to go into. But those are a few that I would recommend to the general masses. So Imam Sahib is reminding me, after next month on October 18th, it will be after Isha. And if you look at this slide, you can see that over the next, 6 remaining sessions, what I plan to cover is the Meccan era. So obviously, for that reason, we can't go into too much detail. We'll be speaking, as I said, regarding the seminal moments of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But yeah, after on from next month, is it because the time changes? Yeah, the time changes, so we'll have our class after Isha, inshallah. Maghrib, yeah, will be too early, and so we'll do it after Isha. We'll stop here for today. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. So,